Only I know the secrets of Silverlake. In time, I will reveal the truth behind the mysterious crimes, murders, and disappearances within this cursed community. I have the answers. I will reveal all under the Silverlake. Jesus.
Yeah.
Throughout Under the Silverlake, we follow the protagonist Sam as he wanders around sunny LA, attempting to string together a series of random, seemingly unconnected events. The disappearance of his new love interest Sarah, the ominous dog killer that seems to be terrorizing his skunk-infested East LA neighborhood, the disappearance of billionaire turned stuntman Jefferson Sevens, and a whole rogues gallery of California hipsters acts as clues and roadblocks to help Sam unravel this mystery he's convinced himself exists. Up until the midpoint, the film is teetering on the edge of conspiracy. These events are random enough to be coincidental, yet as they're drip-fed to us and Sam, we're encouraged to connect the dots. It's halfway through when the film finally decides what kind of story it wants to tell. Instead of delving into the delusions of a paranoid early 30s loser, these events, these disappearances, these dog killings, do have a deeper meaning. This conspiracy that Sam created in his head purely to get laid, then unravels itself. These unconnected events are connected, and by the end, the conspiracy is true. If the answers lie under the Silverlake, then Sam has found them, not at the bottom of a reservoir, but in a hut at Mount Hollywood.
Hello? Can I help you?
Once the dots are connected, and perhaps the film rewatched a couple times, the conspiracy becomes clear. There's a secret society of rich people that entomb themselves underground, with a handful of attractive young girls to live out the rest of their days. Sarah accompanied Jefferson Sevens to his tomb, hence her disappearance. The secret codes in songs, cereal boxes, and Nintendo magazines are ways in which this secret society communicate. The homeless are their men on the streets, facilitating their journey underground and using their symbols to do so. At the very end, when Sam is evicted, on his wall is a symbol that started this whole conspiracy. As explained by the comic writer, this specific symbol means keep quiet. This is put on Sam's wall as he now knows about the society. The Owl's kiss is simply an assassin that keeps the lid on this conspiracy. She killed the comic writer because he knew too much. She tries to kill Sam because he knew too much. While this explains the film's meaning on a literal sense, what was the message of Under the Silverlake? What was writer and director David Robert Mitchell trying to say? And what was this story truly about?
Ideologies you assume you adopted through free will but are actually a result of hidden messages.
Okay, so what if there are messages that aren't subliminal, but are meant only for certain people?
Of course. That's as common as tits and hamburgers.
In analysing this film, we mirror Sam. Just like him, we're trying to find meaning amongst these abstract events and ideas, but hopefully, like Sam, we eventually do find what we're looking for. We can point to the influences of this film to help us understand it. The film noir movement acts as a framework, offering David Robert Mitchell the basic DNA onto which he projects a trendy, sun-drenched LA. It's easy to label any gritty, often black and white detective film as noir, but the genre has a more specific fibre than that. Such films often involve a strong philosophical outlook that the setting and protagonists embody. This outlook is very negative. The world is pessimistic and is on a downswing with no redemption in sight. The cinematography is dark and grimy. The pessimism manifests in every aspect of the film. The central mystery often extends this philosophy, revealing an even more ugly side of an already ugly society. By the conclusion, this mystery is tied up in a neat bow, and there's little room for ambiguity. In more recent years, the neo-noir has risen to popularity. These are typically more ambiguous and have less clean-cut lines of morality. They encourage us to find our own meaning in the film's themes.
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
However, Under the Silverlake deviates from this neo-noir tradition as it does offer a concrete explanation. It recognises the postmodern tendencies of a neo-noir in the first half, allowing the audience to draw conclusions over whether or not there is a grand conspiracy at play. But by the time Sam decodes the mystery on the pizza box, it's taken a firm stance against this. This may be the first postmodern noir, or a neo-neo-noir. In building upon the themes of the neo-noir, it circles back down to an original noir. The protagonist Sam also acts as a modern take on a noir character. He mirrors the existential and grimy state of a typical protagonist, the stench that follows him personifying the self-loathing nature of a noir leading man. Such figures are often characterised as bleak and nihilistic, a womanising functional alcoholic, all traits that certainly apply to Sam. The key difference being that Sam is devoid of the charisma that obscures and excuses these behaviours in a typical noir detective. Like one of those realistic renderings of a cartoon character that exposes a beloved figure for the grotesque nightmare it would be in real life, Sam is the noir detective made realistically toxic. In structuring the film as a noir, it allows for the layers of the world to be gradually peeled back until finally all these aspects form a whole, and in that instant the world takes on a new character. It is no longer the LA of the real world and becomes an impression of the city. It forgoes the typical noir traits of sleazy cops or hard-bitten gangsters in favour of a more Lynchian underworld, but an underworld
People out there who
nonetheless.
are more important than us, more powerful and wealthier than us, that are communicating things and seeing things in the world that are meant for only them and not for us. I think it's fucking ridiculous to assume that media has just one purpose, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you think that's weird?
Unlike a common noir protagonist, Sam's personal philosophy isn't ultra pessimistic. It flips the typical nihilism on its head. Instead of nothing having meaning, everything has meaning. Under the Silverlake is a noir film for the internet age, the age of paranoia, when everyone has an assigned FBI guy monitoring their search history, when every millionaire is a paedophile, every vaccine a tracking device. Sam is one misguided Facebook post away from full-blown QAnon. Over the course of his journey, he's repeatedly told it's not that deep. Not everything has to mean something, but of course to Sam it does, and by the midpoint it does to us too. The journey Sam goes on is one of discovery, but his mindset remains constant. The disappearance of Sarah only acts as a catalyst for Sam, pushing his paranoia over the edge and forcing him to act. Sam discovers this Lynchian LA underworld, but this only vindicates his already paranoid mindset, confirming his belief rather than challenging it. The hard part is Sam returning back to his normal, unwashed, unpaid life, and figuring out how to move forward. He spent so much time trying to see deeper and further that he wasn't able to see what was directly in front of him all along. His life isn't going to improve just because now he's uncovered the conspiracy he willed into existence. It will get better when he makes a conscious effort to improve himself. It's time to get your shit together, Sam. And it's in the film's finale that Sam finally comes to recognise this. When speaking to Sarah on the phone, she mentions how she can't escape the bunker she's entombed herself in, so she may as well make the most of it. The screen cuts to the Hollywood sign, and Sam replies that he too must make the most of his situation. He can't escape LA, so he might as well learn to live there.
Well, there's no getting out now, so I may as well make the best of it.
Yeah. Same here.
After Sam returns home and sleeps with his neighbour, he asks her what a bird is saying. She replies, stating that she doesn't know. Instead of obsessing over it and going on an odyssey across LA to uncover this all-important mystery, Sam simply accepts it and doesn't question it any further. This shows that Sam is no longer searching for hidden meaning in everything, signifying that he's moved past his paranoid mindset and is ready to move on. In the final shot of the film, he smokes a cigarette on his neighbour's balcony. Andrew Garfield has a much more confident stance. The music swells, and in this moment, Sam looks almost triumphant. He's completed his journey and gotten to the bottom of the rabbit hole, and now he can stop nurturing his paranoia and begin nurturing his life instead.
I used to like a girl that had a dog.
When was that?
A long time ago.
Did she stop loving you?
It's unclear why Sam fixates on Sarah, and why his paranoia is at an all-time high when the film begins, but it probably has roots with his ex-girlfriend. Throughout the film, Sam repeatedly stumbles upon a billboard advertising contact lenses. It shows a picture of a woman with the slogan, "I can see clearly now." While at first this suggests that because Sam has begun to unravel the conspiracy at the heart of the film, for the first time he can see the world for what it truly is. But it takes on a new meaning towards the end of the film, when we're introduced to his ex-girlfriend, who's the model on the billboard. From their brief meeting, it's clear that Sam didn't take their breakup very well, and it stands to reason that he's been down bad ever since. He still carries a dog biscuit around in hopes that she will take him back. Perhaps he's so insistent on tracking down Sarah, as he sees her as a replacement for his ex, But after she disappears, this leads him down a rabbit hole of intrigue and deception, which once he's got to the bottom of provides closure for Sam. Once he's uncovered the mystery, it's no surprise that the billboard is starting to get painted over. He's starting to get over his ex and move on. He's not fully there yet, as part of the billboard still remains, but he's taken steps in the right direction and finally starting to work on himself. He also leaves the dog biscuits behind with the homeless king, further reinforcing the idea that he's begun to move on from his ex-girlfriend and begin a new, decidedly less paranoid chapter in his life.
It's really creepy, huh?
Yeah.
I don't even walk my dog anymore.
We use a litter box.
What's that smell?
Sam's past relationship is not the only part of this film relating to dogs. The very first shot is of the ominous words, "Beware the dog killer." It's easy for the dog killer to drop into the background, joining the owl's kiss and the homeless king as part of a modern day mythos for LA. But what does it represent? No matter what Reddit says, it's impossible based solely on textual evidence to know the dog killer's identity for certain. In trying to find a concrete identity, we go down the same paranoid conspiracy rabbit hole that Sam does, so we must look at what it represents. Throughout the film, dogs are repeatedly paired with women. Sarah has a dog, Sam's ex had a dog. Numerous times women bark at Sam. So is a dog killer a twisted metaphor for a woman killer? This film definitely has something to say on how women are treated in Hollywood. Throughout the film they're objectified, killed, used as prostitutes, and even bought and paid for by rich men to be entombed with. Notice what they're watching on TV in the background when Sam speaks to Sarah over the phone. Almost every female character is objectified in this film, someone for Sam to pursue sexually or romantically. It's only his neighbour who is immune to this sexualization, proudly going topless on a balcony in an overtly unsexual way. Perhaps the dog killer represents the general misogyny of LA. After all, we only ever see women complain about it. Sam very much embodies this misogyny, sexualizing every woman he meets, and this sexism finds its place among his paranoia as yet another flawed part of his worldview. His rampant objectification serves as a hurdle he needs to overcome in order to find happiness. When he sleeps with his neighbour at the end of the film, really the only female character who isn't objectified, this represents him getting over this hurdle and beginning to recognise and work on his flaws.
Have you thought about getting a new dog?
No.
Might be good for you.
A little unconditional love.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
In many ways, Under the Silverlake acts as a noir film. As is common for the genre, the protagonist has a fatal flaw they must overcome in order to find happiness. If we view the film through this lens, its meaning becomes clearer. Once the mystery is pushed to the background and Sam to the foreground, we can focus on his journey as a character. As he unravels this mystery, he unravels himself, indulging his paranoid and misogynist tendencies and adding more fuel to the fire that is his degrading mental health. When he finally solves this mystery, he's not triumphant, he's not proud, he seems to simply accept it and move on. His true moment of triumph comes at the very end of the film, when he accepts what he is and recognises that he needs to move on. Move on from his ex, move on from Sarah, and move on from this needless search for meaning in everything. He can't change his life, but he can change his outlook. There's no getting out now, so he may as well make the best of it.